This is going to be one episode of the podcast you are not going to want to miss. I'm here today with Steven Reinstein. He is the CEO and founder of Market Muscles, a pioneering company dedicated to helping dance and martial arts studios thrive. With over 8 years of industry experience, Steven has established himself as a leading authority in creating innovative technology solutions that drive student enrollment and retention. Under Steven's leadership, Market Muscles has successfully generated over 1.5 million leads for its members, providing them with lead-generating websites and online marketing tools tailored to their unique needs. Steven's passion for connecting more children with top-tier dance studios has been a driving force behind Market Muscles' mission and success. Through his expertise and dedication, Steven continues to revolutionize the way dance and martial arts studios attract and retain students, making a significant impact on the industries he serves. You are going to hear some incredible tidbits in today's episode that you really want to take note of, and they're easy to implement. That's one thing that Steven likes to do, is really have you take action right away. So let's get right into the episode. Welcome to this episode of the Dance Studio 411 podcast. I'm Jill Terone, and I'm really excited for our special guest today. I'm here with Steven Reinstein from Market Muscles.
Awesome. Excited to be here.
Yes, and I am really excited for you to be here as well because, as you know, you and I speak the similar language of all things websites, technology, and what makes the world go round when it comes to dance studios, online digital presences. So, Steven, in your own words, why don't you give us a little background of where you've been, what you've been doing? I know you've had a really busy summer. You came to join us at Energize, which was amazing. But I'd love for everybody to hear in your words your journey and how you ended up where you are today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, this could be 40 minutes in itself, but yeah, I started creating websites actually when I was 12 years old. I know it's kind of a weird hobby for a 12-year-old to pick, but I was always into sports. I did martial arts growing up and things like that. But my dad, who was really into computers, he actually wrote a couple books for Microsoft. He was really into like the system side of things, introduced me to computers, and that really, piqued my interest in creating websites in itself. And I just really loved the idea of being able to create something from nothing. And I'm sure, dance studio owners feel the same way when you're, you know, starting with a student from scratch and all of a sudden, they become an incredible dancer, or you're so yeah, I just really hooked on to that whole thing starting from when I was 12 years old. Like I had mentioned, growing up doing martial arts, something that I started when I was a kid. I had two older brothers that were doing martial arts as well. I just kind of got thrown into it as well as I kind of say my mom picked my my activity for me. But it's something that I fell in love with very early on, and something that I still do to this day. But yeah, just growing up, really was into computers, creating websites. I worked for various different types of companies. I actually, when I was 16 years old, made a really interesting decision that my parents hated, but decided to drop out of high school and actually pursue my passion of creating websites, which is something I don't recommend for most people. But my mom went absolutely crazy when I made that decision, but luckily things worked out. But yeah, I worked for various different types of companies, kind of building up my portfolio. I worked for a company that created websites for like really big technology companies. So companies based in Silicon Valley that were, raising millions of dollars in funding. And I worked for another company that did websites for some of the biggest prolific political figures in the world. And that was really interesting. Not really my passion, but still a great experience to work on some projects that really, was shown to the masses. But then eventually I hit a point where I was like, you know what, I really love the idea of servicing the industry that I am so in love with, which at the time was martial arts. So I think it was when about 8 or 9 years ago when I decided, I want to start creating websites for martial arts schools. And I remember sitting down with my instructor, who's, like I mentioned, been my instructor since I was like 2, 3 years old when I started martial arts. And he was really frustrated with his website. And I was like, hey, like I do this. This is what I love to do. So let me create a website for you and see how it goes. And I did that. And I remember like the day after the website launched, he was getting notifications about new leads coming in and he was like super excited about it. And that really is what started the whole thing. So happy to dive into that a little bit more. But fast forward to today, we service over 800 martial arts schools, and over the last year or so, we started getting a lot of referrals from our martial arts schools that were saying, "Hey, I've got a friend that runs a dance studio. Are you able to do a website for them?" And I was like, "Sure. Like, let's take a little bit of a closer look at this industry and see if we can help them." And one of the things that I found is similar to martial arts instructors, dance studio instructors also have the same passion for helping kids become the best versions of themselves. And as someone personally that has been through that, that really needed like that core activity in my life that helped like keep me in line. I love the idea of helping another industry that does the same thing. So yeah, I just really dove in head first. Like you had mentioned, this summer has been crazy. I went from being in Connecticut for Regold's event to then the next week being in Vegas for Dance Life Teacher Conference, and then Energize. I mean, we met, I guess it was in Connecticut, right? I believe. Sorry, they're all like blending together.
Yeah, they
Um,
do. But yeah, we met officially for the first time in Connecticut.
yeah.
And that was great. That's what started our journey. So I'm so grateful that I walked over and said hello.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it as well. And it's crazy that just a couple of weeks later, I'm at Energize and I'm experiencing your guys' conference, which was amazing. I've been to so many conferences now for the martial arts world, and now experiencing the dance world. Like you guys have so much more fun. Like I love the martial arts conferences, of course, but you guys do things really fun. And yeah, Energize was such a blast. It's such a like personal conference. You know what I mean? Like you go to some that are like, there's thousands of people there and it's great. And I'm not discrediting that. I think everything has its pros and cons, but Energize was so cool because it's like, you really felt the energy from everyone. Everyone was excited to be there, ready to learn. And, one person, so we spoke, both me and Mia from my team, we had the opportunity to host a lunch and learn, and we gave away a copy of our book. And I remember seeing a post that someone tagged us on. They were on their plane ride home reading the book that we gave them and just seeing that them taking action so quickly. Like that was the energy that everyone in the room was giving. So it was a lot of fun.
And that's what we share in common because when I speak as well, I often love to see the outcome right away. And in my seminar that I did, it was about AI, and I had one of our members literally working as we were speaking and using the AI tools. And, by the time we had walked away from that 1 hour seminar, she had revamped her mission statement, worked on her core values, had come up with some amazing things. So it's so rewarding to be able to just work in our industry with people who are so interested to learn and want to do great things. So that's a great segue. Speaking of wanting to learn, let's dive right in. And you have such an amazing background. So that's why we're talking today. Let's talk about websites specifically. And why don't you give us a good overview of really the purpose of a website for a dance studio? What are you seeing? I know trends happen, things are coming into play that are different now than were just even a few short years ago. So let's talk about a dance studio website, kind of from your perspective on what we can do to make them great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think for any dance studio, their goal is to grow, right? It's to serve more people. It's to make a bigger impact in their community. And, websites is just a wonderful way to do that because everybody that is looking for some sort of service or some sort of business that they want to interact with, they start online, right? They do a Google search. They're looking to figure out, okay, who's the best person or best company to fulfill whatever need or desire that I have. So the website is a great place to invest in that because more than likely every single person who walks through your doors is going to be on your website at some point. So I tell most studio owners that their website is their digital studio. It's their digital forefront. And it's really important that you have an incredible website so that way their experience, your prospect's experience, is as amazing as possible. So that way you're setting the expectations that when they actually walk through your door, they're going to get a great experience as well. Or if you have a website that's like really old or clunky and frustrating to use, that really sets the precedence that, hey, maybe that's going to be the same experience I get when I walk through the door as well, which isn't what we want. So really what I look at when it comes to a studio's website is one, it's like I mentioned, setting that initial experience, but two, it really should be built for the prospect and being able to share what you offer, what makes you unique, but really being able to connect with them. And I see a lot of dance studios kind of use their website as a place for their existing students to be able to get information, to see like, the rules and the FAQs and the upcoming schedules and everything that goes along with being a student. But, there's tons of systems that offer things like parent portals that are really where that sort of information should be hosted. Whereas the website really should be built for prospects and their journey specifically.
That's great. So just to clarify and say that one more time, let's, shout it for the people in the back. The website is really looking at your prospects and people who are finding you maybe for the first time through some search engine optimization, checking you out if they have a small child who's looking to maybe get into dance, or maybe they're even shopping to go to a different studio, who knows, but really focusing on that prospect as opposed to putting so many things on the website that are geared toward the current families. Now,
Yeah.
one thing that I know that I do, I am a dance mom. So many of you know that about me, and it's great. But I find myself constantly going to the website for the actual calendar, however. Do we
Yep.
have classes tonight? What's happening here? So there are some things that I do like to see on a very forward-facing website because it's super easy to find. And that may be to, like you said, solving it with one of the great apps that people use or some of the platforms that are available to the registered students. But I know I find myself going for a quick check. Oh gosh, are we open? Are we not open? What's happening this week? So I love that. So anything to add before we move on to maybe another point that we want to cover, and that's kind of what we can do now that we are learning that we want our website to work for us when it comes to prospects, but now how to actually reel them in a little bit.
Yeah, just real quick on the idea that, if your students or the parents of the students are currently trained to go to your website to look for that information, that's what they're going to do. And if you make the transition from having a website that's built for prospects first, for information for your students, it's just a matter of retraining and re-explaining to them like, hey, you have to go to our app, or you have to go to the parent portal, or you add a link to your website that says like existing student, click here, and then they can go and find the information. So, I have definitely faced that before with studio owners that are like, well, everyone's just so used to going to our website for the information. It's okay. Like people can be retrained, and there's ways to do it. You set up QR codes in your lobby. You make announcements at the end of class or beginning of class and say, hey, this is where you get this information now. And look, at the end of the day, like I know we all have the same frustration with parents. We tell them where to go, how to find this information. We give them pieces of paper. They still don't show up the right times. They still, right. So it's like, if you're going to make a change, like it's not going to blow their world up. Like it's not going to change things too dramatically. But yeah, at the end of the day, like if you're able to train them to find the information in a different place, like it's totally doable.
Thank you. That's absolutely true. Let's get them where you need them to be and get the information that they require. So awesome. Yeah, I'm one of those parents. Train me to do it differently. It's okay. So let's talk about the improvements that a studio owner can make to their website. Especially, I know, like you just mentioned, it can be scary. Change is a scary thing, and we're already, as this podcast will release, we're already into the new season, so it's busy. Is there anything that we can talk about that a studio owner says, "Oh, you know what? I'm just going to put that off. I don't have time right now." Maybe there's something that they can do with their current website that would give them a little boost in this direction for making their websites work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was actually a post made in the Dance Studio Owner Facebook group just a couple days ago that one of my clients shared with me, but it was somebody that had received our book at the Energize conference and took the information that's in there and applied it to their website, their existing website. And, it seemed like maybe they spent a couple hours doing it. So it wasn't like anything crazy or investment of time. And the feedback that was given was like almost immediately they started generating new students from their website, where before they weren't doing that at all. So everything that I talk about today, I think it's something that any studio owner can apply to their website and see a massive difference almost immediately, which is so rewarding to see that. When my client shared that screenshot with me, I was like, holy crap, this is the best thing ever, right? Because like we were talking about before, like someone that will take the information and apply it and see the results is like, as someone who's like a teacher, like that's the best thing, right? It's like, you're teaching a new move or something to a student, like it finally clicks, right? That's the most rewarding thing ever. So yeah, everything that we talk about today, I think could be applied very easily, even though we are in a super busy time of the year. It's still really, really important because, we're going to get those students that are trickling in, we're throughout the beginning of the year, and we want to make sure that we're capturing as much of them as possible. But everybody that has a website is getting people to come to their website currently, whether they're finding you through Google or they're finding you through social media, whatever it might be. Our goal, though, is to capture as many of those people's information as possible. So that's really what we set our website up to do. So is it cool if I just pick, one of these kind of core tenets that I see with websites and jump into it?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So first thing that I really recommend for all studio owners to do is to group their classes by age group rather than by the different styles that they offer. Okay. And this is really important because we have to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody that has never really experienced dance before. And maybe they have a general idea of like, okay, obviously there's a difference between like hip hop and ballet, but they really don't know like what their child specifically should be involved with, right? And being able to make that decision without any sort of interaction with your studio could be really difficult. And anytime that you are putting that sort of pressure on a prospect, they're less likely to fill out their information to be able to browse your website appropriately. So really recommend everybody groups their classes by age group. Everybody knows how old their child is. So it makes things very simple when they come to your website. Okay, this is the spot for me, right? My kids' class, ages 6 through 12, or however you want to group it. And then once somebody lands on that specific page, it talks about the pain points, the desires, the needs of that specific age group, and then also goes into the different styles that are offered for that age group as well. So this really helps because what someone with a 3-year-old is looking for is probably different than what someone with a 7-year-old is looking for, right? So by kind of funneling people into their own separate pages based off of age group makes things way easier, way simpler, but then you're also talking to them specifically and whatever they're dealing with. And it really helps to build a connection with them rather than just having one page that lists out every style that you offer.
That's such a great point because we know as teachers, as studio owners, things come very naturally to us. We would know right away that a child who is 7 years old would be great in these 3 particular classes, or maybe there's 4 offerings for that age group and that particular age where they are. So it's really interesting that you are taking that and pulling it out and teasing it out so that they can find that information on the website. So remember, and we say this a lot, even though it's very natural for us to know, these people who are these families and potential students that are coming to your website, they may be somebody that has never danced before. They may not be a dance parent or have had any experience. So for them, it's very foreign and it can be a little, like you mentioned, a little scary. We want to break
Yeah.
down those barriers and bring them in and make them feel very nurtured right from the start in their digital journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to kind of refer back to if there's any fans of Gordon Ramsay or Kitchen Nightmares out there, one of the big things he typically does is he'll go to the restaurant first and he sits down and he tries to experience what it's like before he actually starts yelling at everybody in the kitchen. But one of the things that he'll point at is like when he's looking at the menu, if there's too many options, like that is typically an issue for him, right? Because people will sit down and they start to experience analysis paralysis because they're just looking at so many different options. They don't know what to choose. Okay, so by breaking things into age groups, you end up having like maybe 4 or 5 different options when people are looking, and it's very clear, okay, I belong in this bucket because my child is this age. So then I can click and then, find out more information. Where if you have like 15 different styles listed, it's like, oh, what do I choose? And then all of a sudden they're not choosing anything, which is what you don't want them to do. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I love that comparison because that happens to me too, especially after a long day. I sit down, I look at the menu and I'm, paging through it page after page, and I finally just shut it and I ended
yep,
up ordering a burger because I don't know what else to order at that point. So
exactly. Yep.
good. Okay, so now that they're on the page, Stephen, they've made it to the site, they've found their grouping, their age group, or the page that appeals to them. What happens now?
Yeah. So there's a couple really important pieces to a successful class page. Okay. So there's images, there's the actual copy or like the text on the website, and then there's going to be the call to action. So let's start with images because I think that's really important. I think everyone wants to have the best images that really showcase their studio on their website. And what I see a lot of dance studios do is they'll take like their best images from their end of year recital, or they'll take images from, one of their best dancers performing a really complex move. And from my perspective, and I think for a lot of new parents that are bringing their children in, that's not an image that's going to help build a connection with them because it's hard to imagine, if you again are taking a step back, we're looking at a parent who's bringing their child in for the first time, them being able to execute a very complex move, like that's not where they're at their journey right now. Okay. And more than likely, that's not the piece that's super important to them. The piece that's really important to them is that they're entering in a dance studio that's going to be extremely friendly. It's going to result in their child having a lot of friends, and they're going to have a really caring instructor, and they're going to be in a very clean and welcoming environment. Like those are the things that they want to see that's going to really build a connection with them. So as amazing as our photos are of our recitals and our best dancers performing those incredible moves, we really want to focus on what are they going to experience on a day-to-day basis when they're coming into class, and how can we convey that this is the place for them, that they're going to belong, that they're going to feel like they're at home when they're coming to our classes every single day. So what I really suggest for studios is to take photos, very candid photos of their day-to-day classes that show their kids smiling, having fun, like really experiencing, just that great, class that you really offer, and having that as the types of images that you have on your website.
Yeah, and we often recommend professional photo shoots, which don't have to be all that expensive or time consuming. And when we hear a professional photo shoot, that can be a little intimidating. But honestly, you could barter with a family member who is starting out, and maybe a dance mom does this as a nice hobby, and they're really good at it. So there are some ways to get some nice, candid but professional photography in your studio. And if for some reason you don't have that yet, boy, those iPhones work really well now for great imagery for your website.
Absolutely. I just started using this resource called Snappr. It's snappr.com. And I tested it when I was in Chicago, actually, for Energize. But basically, it's like an Uber, but for photographers. So you'll go onto the website, you'll type in an address, and it will match you with the photographer or videographer that's local to the area. And the prices are really, really inexpensive. So, for instance, for my lunch and learn, I had a photographer and a videographer, two separate people come in that were taking photos and recording the session for me. I think I paid $150 for both to come in, and uh, the actual delivery, like the photos and the videos, were really high quality. And it's cool because you pick the day that you want them to come in, the time, how many hours they're going to be spending, and you provide all the instructions up front. And it's just a great way to have someone come in and create really great professional looking photos for you. And it's really inexpensive. So highly recommend that resource.
Great tip. We're going to put that in the show notes. So if you're listening in, you'll find that link in the show notes and you can go grab that. That's a great tip. I didn't know that existed. I love that.
Yeah, I just found out about it a couple of weeks before the Energize event, and I was like, I got to try this out because I think this would be an amazing resource for a lot of studio owners, and it worked really well for us. So it was great.
Great. And then when it comes to videos, what do you think about videos on websites?
Yeah, so I think it's a great thing to do, specifically in like the main kind of banner area of a website, because I think it They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, then a video's worth 1,000,000 words. So it's a great way to kind of show people what they can expect coming into your studio. The one thing I'll say though, and I get this a lot of our studio owners, they want to see the video display on mobile, and we always hide it on mobile. And the reason why is because most people are not connected to a Wi-Fi connection if they're on mobile. So that means that your website will load slower if you're making them load a large video. So cool thing for desktop, no, not so much for mobile.
Exactly. Okay, great. So you and I are on the same page about that and most everything. But now let's talk a little bit more about scheduling and pricing on websites because I know you and I let's put it this way, Stephen. I want you to convince me in this trend of removing, so to speak, removing these items from a dance studio's website.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about before, typically three things that go into a really great class page. We've got the images, we've got the content, and we've got the call to action, right? So call to action is essentially what do you want your prospect or the person that's on your website to do? And typically it's you want them to fill out their information, right? You want to be able to call them, text message with them, talk to them. That way you can share information about how they can come in and start classes. Now, typically, there's two things that everybody who comes to your website are most interested in when they come to your site, and that's your schedule and your pricing. Okay. And my issue with that is if you invest in creating an amazing website that shows all of your values, you've invested in this photographer to come take incredible photos, and you're showing off your team, and you really go into creating that amazing copy for your pages, and all they care about is seeing your schedule and pricing. They're not valuing you based on what sets you apart from your customers and what makes your studio the obvious choice for your community. Okay. They're just skipping to, oh, does this fit my schedule? Oh, is it cheap enough or does it fit my budget? Right. And for a lot of people, their schedules change, right? Maybe their child is in softball right now, but things will change a couple months from now. And if they're looking at strictly pricing, maybe they don't understand the true value of what you're offering versus, what you're displaying on your website. So my recommendation for studio owners is to remove their schedule and their pricing from their website and use that as a lead magnet. So basically people have to fill out their information to see those details. And once they do, then they can actually see your schedule and your pricing, typically your trial offer. But at least you're capturing their information so that way you're able to follow up, you're able to have that personal conversation with them to better understand who they are, who their child is, what their goals are, and really direct them on which classes they should be attending. Now, I will also add, I've been looking at probably thousands of dance websites now over the last year or so, and your guys' schedules can be some of the most confusing schedules I've ever seen in my life. And same thing with pricing. Okay. So I look at some schedules and there's like literally hundreds of classes that can be, done in a single week. And then I look at pricing and I see it's like sometimes broken down by the 15-minute increment. And then it's like, oh, and then if you have a second child, it's X% off. And a third child is X% off. Oh, you're a firefighter. Okay. Then we got this discount. Police. Okay. We got this discount. And it's like trying to figure out exactly which class I should be attending, how many hours I should be going per week, and which discounts are going to apply to me, which ones aren't. It's very difficult to decipher for someone that's brand new. So if you're able to connect with them one-on-one, have that conversation, figure out what, again, their specific desires are, how old their child is, which classes they're going to go into, you can then provide to them, hey, this is what we recommend for you. So it really becomes a more white glove service for the prospect, where they feel like they're getting, really one-on-one experience versus like, hey, here's the information, figure it out for yourself, and then let us know when you're ready to start.
I love it. You're convincing me little by little, Stephen. This is why these conversations are so important to our industry because things shift and things change. And I know it's always been one of those pieces of content where studio owners were first and foremost afraid that they didn't want their competitors to necessarily see things like pricing, fees, or their schedule. They wanted to keep that close to the vest. So now we're moving into more of the marketing strategy behind actually pulling that back, letting the potential prospect give you something so that really truly what you're doing is creating the relationship with this person. It's not about withholding from the website. It's not about necessarily making them, go through extra hoops to get it. But what you say is so important because it gives you the opportunity to have a conversation, even if it's by text message or email, or hopefully even by the phone call, but have that conversation and really get to know that person in a very short period of time and then deliver exactly what they're looking for.
Exactly. Yep. And then at the same time, you're building up a database of people that have essentially raised their hand and said, like, I'm interested in dance, right? So even if they don't sign up right away, you at least have their contact information. So that way you can do ongoing nurturing. You can send them updates about what's going on at the studio. And then every year when re-enrollment season comes and, everyone wants to pack their studios up, you're not just dealing with a list of people who have previously been students, you're also dealing with a list of people that have at least expressed interest in dance at one point with your studio. Right. So you go from emailing maybe a couple hundred people to emailing thousands of people in your community that have expressed interest. And I promise that's going to fill up classes way quicker than if you're just dealing with people that are previous students.
And do you have any tips for our listeners who are saying, okay, Stephen, this is great, but how do I actually fulfill the requirements of somebody, asking for the schedule or my pricing? How am I going to actually do that? I'm a one-man band, or I have very little support. And, what if this lead comes in and it's 2 o'clock in the morning? How am I servicing them round the clock when I barely have any time right now to even teach my classes?
Absolutely. So this is where the power of CRM systems come into place, where you're able to essentially deploy things like AI to help with that initial conversation. Okay. So there's things like workflows and automations that can say, hey, I've got a new lead on my website. Let's send them a text message after 2 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, we're going to send them an email. And then 3 days later, we're going to send them another text message. So, there's a couple studies out there. There's one famously done by Harvard that really talks about the response time of when a lead comes into your website. And you should really be answering them within 5 minutes of them filling out their information. And after that 5 minutes, the likelihood of them signing up for your dance studio dramatically goes down. Okay. So, but I get your point that there's a lot of studio owners that are out there. Maybe they're in the middle of class. Maybe they have a day job and then they have their dance studio in the evening times, and it's hard to respond to those people. So really having a system in place that can help talk to those leads for them is really important. Something that we do offer at Market Muscles is that ability. So it's not just the websites, but it is the systems that help nurture the leads as well. But then there's other great systems out there as well in the industry that I've definitely seen. And I think a lot of people's systems that they use for managing their students, whether that's Jackrabbit or Dance Studio Pro, whoever it might be, probably has some sort of functionality there as well. So they should definitely check that out.
Great. And that really segues into us wrapping this up today. I would love for you to share with our listeners how they can learn more about you, your business. What's the next step for our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I love, and I genuinely mean this, helping, studio owners, because like I shared before, I have a really personal connection with what you guys do, just being someone that has experience. Now it was in the martial arts, but it's the same thing. I had a really amazing instructor that is still my instructor to today. And I look at that person as almost like a father figure to me because of what they've been able to help me with in life. And I realize that you guys are doing the same thing as well. So we always start every relationship with a website audit where we take a look at your existing website and we say, hey, these are the things that we think would really help. And that's like great information that you can take and apply yourself. But if you're like, hey, like I love this information, but look, I opened up a dance studio to teach classes, not to be a web designer, then we can help out with that. So just going to our website, reaching out to us, there's a button on the top right. Our call to action says free website audit. That's what we like everybody to start with. So you can just fill out your information and we can have a conversation and see if things, line up and if it's something that we can help with.
That's great. And we have your website listed in the show notes. So you can click right through, go check out Stephen's website. And the team is great. I know I've only met, I believe, one or two people from your team, but everybody's been so nice and so friendly. And we really enjoyed having you at our Energize conference. So with that, anything to add before we wrap up today, Stephen?
Yeah, I'll just say that I think every studio owner is sitting on a really massive opportunity with their website. They're getting a lot of people coming to their website currently. It's just a matter of of capturing them. So if you're in a position where you're like, hey, I just really wish I was getting more leads or I was enrolling more students, really take a look at these things that we talked about. I also have a book that I had created called From Clicks to Customers that really breaks down these items. And I gave away that book for free. And I leave no secret unturned. I kind of say everything that we do in our services in that book. So you can really take that and apply it to your website. So I really recommend that you, grab a copy of that book. If you want a free copy, just email me. It's steven@marketmuscles.com and just say, hey, I'd love a copy of your book and I'll send one out to you.
Great. And I'll put your email address in our show notes as well, since you gave that nice offer to our listeners. Well, Steven, I could talk to you honestly for days. We could turn this into a whole series based on what we want to do and accomplish with dance studio websites. But unfortunately, we do have to let everybody get back to running their studios and teaching classes and doing all the wonderful things in this new season. So with that, I thank you so much for your time and talent. And I'm looking forward to having our listeners reach out to you to learn more about Market Muscles and how you can help them create more leads and make their websites work for them.
Awesome. I really appreciate you having me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.